Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. This is the Finch Show, and I am James Finch. Here we love to talk cosplay, 3D printing, anything nerdy and rad. We also have a new Discord called Nerd Space. It's open. Go join it. There's a side channel in there for stuff for the podcast, but the majority of it is just open conversation amongst us nerds. There's a channel there for comic books, TV and movies, 3D printing, cosplay questions, all those kinds of things. It's a lot of fun as a community, and we're looking to build and get it to grow. But as I move into this episode, my guest is Dania Khalil, who is just so cool. She goes by the Hijab Hooligan on social media, does cosplay, does Twitch streaming. She was so much fun to talk to. So I'm going to shut up and get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Hijab Hooligan. All right. So coming to us from England, which I think is really cool. Whereabouts in England are you at?
I'm in the northeast of England, a little town called Sunderland.
Sunderland. Is that a big town or?
It's a city, but it's a small one.
Mm-hmm.
Most people know the city above us, which is Newcastle.
Oh, yes. Yes. That is really cool. So are you born and raised in England?
Yes, born and raised here, right here in Sunderland.
All right. So that being the case, what was your first exposure, I guess, to what we would call nerd culture?
I would probably say, technically speaking, my father. My dad used to have this ritual of every Friday or Saturday night, sometimes both. He'd sit and just chill out on his own, watch movies. And sometimes as a really young kid, when I didn't want to go to bed, I'd come downstairs and I'd sneak my way into his lap and we'd just sit and watch movies together until I fell asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the first.
What kind of movies was he playing?
Oh my gosh, everything. I saw The Matrix with him. I saw Star Trek with him, X-Men, which was probably my favorite. Everything you can think of.
Mm-hmm. And now here you are. It's been an interesting journey. What made you want to get into cosplay?
The internet, I think. I saw a lot of cosplayers online and I just saw how cool they looked and all the passion they had for it. And I wanted to try. And then a friend of mine also was getting into cosplay and she'd bring stuff into college and work on it. She'd sew on it in like our free periods. And I think that really kind of kickstarted my interest in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was the first one you did?
The first one I did was Storm from X-Men, but it was really bad. It was horrendous. I had like a 2-pound wig from like a supermarket for Halloween, and it was horrible.
Well, I think everybody's first cosplay is bad. Like that's because you're learning and you're just so passionate about doing. You're willing to say stuff like, "Oh, it looks fine." And then you look back on it in pictures and you're like, oh my God. Yeah, sure. That's really cool. How do you feel like your cosplay has evolved since then?
Well, I learned to sew in a straight line. Let's start there. No, I think I've become more confident. I mean, like I said, my first cosplay, I wore a wig because I didn't think that like wearing a hijab in a cosplay was normal or maybe allowed. I don't know. So definitely since then I've just become a lot more confident in myself in terms of like what I can and can't do, what's okay, what's maybe appropriate. And I think it just reflects in like the amount of costumes that I've done and also the kind of characters that I do as well. I pick a lot more recognizable characters now rather than like the little ones that I think I can get away with.
Mm-hmm. The hijab. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the great thing about cosplay is sort of like you're going to dress up as a character that you admire, but you're also going to bring something of yourself to it as well. And sure. It seems as though social media has responded really positively to you doing that.
Yeah, for the most part, I've been very, very lucky with that. Yeah, a lot of people really like it.
Yeah, for the most part. Have you had any backlash or anything?
I mean, it's the internet. No one is safe, really. Right. Everyone, you can't please everyone. So I have had the odd comment here and there, but nothing that would dissuade me from, continuing on with it, I think.
Yeah, good. Don't ever let it, for sure. Well, cool. That being said, kind of like bigger picture, all in all, as you've continued on with this, with both cosplay, and of course with Twitch streaming, how has social media life been for you?
It's been a roller coaster, I would say. There's been an amazingly like overwhelming amount of positivity, and it definitely wasn't something I expected, which is why I say roller coaster. It was like a huge high. And then there's been, the lows where I see that I'm not getting as much engagement maybe, and it kind of puts me off and makes me think, what's the point if no one's going to see it? But no, overall it's been really, really good, really positive.
Yeah, you can't let those valleys like
Yeah.
bother you. And I know I've been there. Like, I'm to the point where I've been doing this podcast for 3 years, and there were, I don't know if you've been there. Like for me, there were times where I almost thought to myself, I've got another episode scheduled next week. That might be my last one. Like I'm just kind of
Yeah.
done. I feel like it's just, spinning mud. And then for whatever reason, it seems like just about the time you're at that point, something happens.
Yeah.
And like, then just like you said, the roller coaster starts going back up and you're like, oh,
Absolutely.
okay. Yeah. I forgot how much fun this is. And
Yeah.
so yeah, don't ever let that dissuade you from stop doing it. Do you make it to a lot of Comic Cons?
Yes. I took a bit of a break for a few years, to be honest, just to focus on my studies and kind of graduating, getting into work and things like that. But I mean, it was to the point where I was going to like one every week. I was going to a lot of Comic Cons,
Oh my
and
God.
now I'm going to a few. I'm spreading it out to maybe two or three a year and focusing on kind of making something new for each one.
Mm-hmm. Are there a lot of cons in England?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's still honestly probably at least one or two a month, if not more. Yeah, there's quite a lot.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's like the interesting note, like geographically speaking.
Mm.
And I've noticed that as somebody who's like an American, and I live like practically right in the smack dab in the middle of the landmass that is the United States. And people from Europe, and especially people from England who come here, one of the biggest complaints they have is how long it takes to get anywhere because everything's so spread out. Like
Yeah.
you remember like the size that England is that you could have a con and it's like a couple hour drive away at most, and it's
Yeah.
like I've got one I want to go to in March. It's like a 4 hour plane ride just to get
Oh,
to
wow.
California. And it's the same thing the other way if you want to go to New York. So it's like just trying to make it 3 cons a year for me is a huge
Mm.
undertaking. What's the turnout at the cons there?
It would depend on the con, to be honest, but normally they tend to be very busy, very big as well. I went to MCM, it was my first one, and I know that that's like a massive one. I've heard a lot about it over the years. And if I remember right, I think the figures went up to like 10,000 people, maybe more
Wow.
in attendance over the 3 days. So it was huge.
Where's that one at?
That was in London, but they do
Oh,
have Birmingham and they used to have Manchester, but that's been replaced now.
oh, why'd they do that?
I don't actually know. As far as I remember, everyone used to rave about Manchester being the best one, and I always wanted to go, but I've heard it's been replaced with something else now. So,
Oh man, that's too bad. I've always like Manchester. Well, England's always been on like my bucket list. You and yeah, I know. You and I were talking. I don't know what it was, a couple weeks ago or a month ago or something like that. We were having a chat. Yeah, a lot of I have a lot of family and ancestry from there, from Wales and from England and from
yes,
Scotland, and I'm
that's
like,
right.
oh man, I've always wanted to go. It's 100% on my list. I almost went when I was in college. They were doing a summer program in Cambridge, and I wanted to
Right.
go so bad. I had the flyer, and it was like it was British literature, like 3 week retreat to Cambridge, and I was so
Wow.
excited. And then eventually, the professor came and passed out the stuff, and yeah, it was like $3,500, and I'm like, I was a poor college student. I'm like,
I've been there.
man, like that would have been
Well,
so.
if you're interested, I think I just saw something about Wales Comic Con is happening very soon.
Ooh,
So, yeah,
ooh, where's that at in Wales?
couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I would love to
Couldn't
hear.
tell you.
There is not, to me, there's nothing funnier than Welsh names, like the names of some of the towns and stuff like that. It cracks
Oh
me
yeah.
up because it's like, and for those who don't know, like just go Google it. Like Welsh names roll off the tongue like Elmer's glue. It's just like it is.
Yes.
It is so bad. My great grandmother was Welsh,
Mm.
and people will think like, oh well, she was Welsh. She probably just spoke with a British accent. Like no, it was a Welsh accent. Like it was so thick. I couldn't, even though it was technically the same language, I couldn't understand what she was saying half the time. She'd get so mad at me because she'd want me to like bring her the colander for like straining. But the way she was saying it, I thought she wanted me to bring her the calendar. And I'd bring her the calendar and she'd start throwing vegetables at me. She's like, no, I want the colander. And you'd be like, oh, geez, okay. that is so cool. Yeah, I would love to get over there. That would be absolutely amazing. So what made you want to start Twitch streaming?
Oh, well, I've been a gamer for most of my life, to be honest, as far back as I can remember. And I don't know, I guess I just kind of wanted to share it with people. I spend a lot of time, with friends online, and I just thought, well, if it's something that I'm as passionate about as I am with cosplay, why not bring it in and kind of, you know what I mean? Like mix the two together.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess streaming is the best way to do that, to be honest, because then you get to interact with people and chat to them in real time and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like everybody's been pretty positive. I've managed to pop in on a couple streams, and it seems like a lot of fun. You said you've been a gamer for a long time. What are your favorite games?
Oh my goodness. Right now I play a lot of Apex Legends, and I play Destiny 2. But generally speaking, I've played Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, every single one of them, apart from the new one. What else? What else have I played? Fable 2 and 3, and the first one, Fallout, Zelda, Mario, everything you can think of.
Well, if you're gonna mention Assassin's Creed, that's gonna turn into a whole conversation because I'm like,
go for it.
I am an absolute dyed in the wool Assassin's Creed fan.
Same.
Favorite one?
2.
Yeah.
Yours?
That might be. I like that one. I liked Brotherhood slightly better.
I can see why. I love the story in Brotherhood.
Yes.
But I'll be honest, I liked Ezio's costume more in 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With like the gray and
yes, it was. I don't have it behind me. I've got the statue of it on the shelf up there. I've got like
awesome. Is it the one where he's jumping off the tower? He's doing the leap of faith?
No, it's the one where he's just walking with his arms out to each side and the hidden blades out.
So cool.
I've got a shelf up there that's got a line of assassins. I've got Cassandra, Arno, Altair, Connor, and Ezio. Yeah.
Love that.
I keep wanting to get the Jacob and Evie Fry ones, but they're so expensive.
They are, but they're stunning.
Yeah, they are. They look absolutely amazing. But you haven't played the most recent one.
No. Only because of when it came out was like slap bang in the middle of obviously COVID, and work was just crazy, and I've just not had the chance. I do own it. I just haven't actually sat down to play it yet.
You'll have to let me know when you do. I was maybe it was just me. I was so excited because Odyssey was so good. I loved Odyssey, and then Ragnarok came, and of course that period in British history I love. The Norse invasion and all that. All that jazz. I don't know, it was me. It felt really grindy. It felt like there were a lot of times where it's like you just had to go over here and do a whole bunch of this to even, you'd have to like if you want to continue on with these missions, that's fine, but you need to level up like 5 levels first.
Oh, right.
So you're just like running around doing stuff. And maybe it was just me. Gameplay is beautiful. I mean, when it comes to that company, why did I just completely brain fart on the name of the company that makes Ubisoft. Yeah, you can't sleep on their graphics department. Like, they know what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you like Black Flag?
Yes. Oh my God. Probably one of my other favorites as well. I love that game. In general, I'm like obsessed with anything to do with pirates. So obviously Black Flag for me was like, oh my God, it's a pirate Assassin's Creed movie. This is the best thing ever. Loved it.
It was good. And I love the way in Assassin's Creed 3, they sort of introduced the ship battle thing to just kind of test the waters, no pun intended, see if people liked it. And then when they came with Black Flag, it was just, that was still to this game. I think of all the Assassin's Creeds that I had pre-ordered and was most excited for. And it was so good. I mean, like right out of the box, just bam, right there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It was honestly one of the best ones. Had it not been for Ezio coming out before, probably Black Flag would be my favorite game.
Right.
of all
Yes.
of them.
The I had the funny thing. I remember I bought the first Assassin's Creed
Mm.
when it came out, and like I don't know what it was, maybe like halfway through it, I just kind of like lost interest. I was just kind of like,
Oh.
okay, whatever. Um, and I don't know how many years it was later that Assassin's Creed 2 was out.
Yeah.
And I was at like GameStop and they had a copy of it on sale for $10.
All
And,
right.
and I was like, well, the first one I thought was okay. I don't think I ever finished it, but for $10, I'll give it a shot. And then I was just like down the rabbit hole, man. I was obsessed with that game.
You were hooked.
But the timing of it couldn't have been better because as it just so happens, because I wasn't paying any attention to Assassin's Creed, I bought this used copy of Assassin's Creed 2. And after I finished it, I realized a week later was when Brotherhood came out. So I got to just like smoothly go right into Brotherhood.
Went straight from 2 to Brotherhood. That's awesome. I love that.
And it was just and then 3. Unity was a little. What'd you think? I want to hear you.
I really, really loved Unity. The
Really?
story behind it just blew my mind. I was obsessed with Unity for the longest time. I don't know. I really, really loved it. I know the multiplayer was very janky when it first came out, and by that I mean it was basically unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I to be honest, I mostly played Assassin's Creed for the stories rather than multiplayer. So obviously when that came out in Unity, yes, I was hyped, but it wasn't a big deal to me.
Right.
So I didn't care as much, but I loved the story so much. And Arno is again hands down one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Well, storyline wise, it was phenomenal. I thought the storyline to Unity was great. That game just unfortunately it had so many bugs when it came out. It was so janky. I remember getting frustrated just trying to like play the campaign and like you would all of a sudden just like fall off buildings or you would get stuck inside a wall and then you'd have to restart the whole game. And I think but thinking about it, that's probably just kind of what left the impression on me is that I'm like, oh God, I don't like this game. Storyline wise, it was great. Yeah. I love the way, oh my gosh, I don't know why. Was Elise, was that his?
Yeah, Elise.
Yeah. The way she was a member of the Templars and it kind of had that, that Romeo and Juliet aspect to it. For sure. That was a lot of fun. And sometimes those games, I think it doesn't help the fact that it came out on the heels of Black Flag. And Black Flag was so good.
It had big shoes to fill.
Yes, and that makes it. And that maybe I'm saying the same thing now about Ragnarok. Maybe that's why I don't like it so much because that was so good. What'd you think of the movie?
I really liked it. I understand why it didn't do as well as expected, but I mean, as I ended up cosplaying a character from it, so you can tell I did enjoy it. but no, I honestly really liked it. I just kind of wish they'd spent a bit more time on fleshing out the character storylines and a little bit, maybe on, I guess, developing the story rather than just throwing you face first into war.
Right.
But I did like it though. I really did like it. The casting was great. The music was stunning. The visuals were just 10/10. The costumes.
I ended up a little split. Like I completely understand why they just picked a different assassin that they made it for the movie. Yeah. Because that's a great thing about like the lore is that you can do that. Like, so I thought that was cool storytelling because then people aren't complaining about canon, right? If you just make one up. On the other hand, I would have loved to have seen Ezio on the big screen.
Oh, same.
Like I would have died like if they would have just done like they could have done like a trilogy of movies that were just Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood I would have loved that. And even into what was the third one with Ezio? Revelations, yes. Where he was like old man Ezio. He was like Obi-Wan Ezio, out there doing his thing.
I really like that they did that with him.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly love it. They saw his story through from the beginning to the end. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Especially the end, man, the very end of that one where it like goes to like Altair being the old man in the vault and he says, I'm just going to sit down. And then it's like his hand's a skeleton and Ezio standing. That was such oh man, I got goosebumps, like straight up goosebumps watching that cutscene. I remember my wife was sitting next to me. She started to tear up.
Yeah,
she was like, oh,
that was me. I was crying. I'm not crying. Don't worry about it.
What, and that was the cool thing about that game is that you got to go back and do some Altair stuff.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Me
Because
too.
I played the first Assassin's Creed with Altair. I actually didn't play that on like a console. I played that on a laptop when I was younger. I remember I don't even know who gave it to me, but someone gave me a copy of the CD, and I still have it to this day. A really old copy of the PC version back when that was a thing,
Mm.
and that's how I played it. So obviously, my first like introduction to Assassin's Creed was before I even had my own console.
Mm-hmm.
And then I carried that into obviously two and then Brotherhood and then so on with the rest of the games on a console. So I kind of got like I feel like I had the whole experience because I went from pre-console gaming to console gaming to now next gen console gaming, all with Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
So those stories just they mean a lot to me. They were made up a massive part of my childhood. So I was really happy to see that you kind of got to go back to do that stuff because then I got to do the Altair stuff on a console.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Which
and
is
the first Assassin's Creed, it was interesting because they at the time they didn't have in their heads what all of this lore was going to be yet.
oh yeah.
It
You can
wasn't
tell.
fully fleshed out. And I may
Yeah.
be telling you stuff you already know, but the game was originally meant to be a Prince of Persia game.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
about that years and years later.
Yeah, and then
I can
like
see it, but I'm glad they didn't take that direction with it.
right, right. I mean, when you look at the way Altair is dressed, you see that for sure.
Yes.
And I could be wrong. Everybody's going to correct me on this later. But as I remember, it was like 3/4 of the way through production, they had to change it to an original storyline and everything. So a lot of the stuff wasn't fully fleshed out.
Yeah.
It's great in terms of like the world that the universe that it started for us. My oldest son, who's also a huge Assassin's Creed, we've been talking for years. I would love for Ubisoft to go back and just do an Altair game. Just
Oh
like
yeah.
take us back to his time, give us a full game of his adventures back in that
That'd be
world,
awesome.
because it'd be great to play as Altair with like the current game mechanics that they have,
Yeah.
and get to explore him as a character. And, because he
Absolutely.
wasn't really, I don't think he was really all that fleshed out in the first one.
No, I feel like he just kind of threw you straight into his life as an assassin, never really went into a lot of his life before and things like that. So yeah, I know what you mean. I see what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying.
I wish they
I
would
think
do
it would
that.
be cool to play another Altair game.
What
But
and I haven't heard anything. I've heard nothing about a new one.
me neither,
You
to
know,
be honest.
Ubisoft there for a while, they were cranking a new one out almost every
Yeah.
single year. And then they kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're gonna slow down on that. And
Yeah. Well, I
I
think
just
now a lot of their focus is on Rainbow, isn't it? Rainbow Six Siege,
yeah,
bringing out like battle passes and things like that, and more content for that. So
that's too
who
bad.
knows? Who
Just just
knows?
just more Assassin's Creed. That's all they need to do.
Please.
Like there's enough shooters out there. Let's go. Here's a kind of a weird question, but related question. Have you played Ghost of Tsushima at all?
No, I haven't, but it is on my list. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but again, I've just not had much time to start anything new. My problem is if I start a new game, I have to sit there and play the whole thing through. If I take a break, I will either forget or lose interest
Mm-hmm.
or get too busy. So I
Right.
need to like dedicate like 3 weeks or maybe not like a week of just straight gaming to start and finish a new game.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is it's sort of related because it came out, roughly around the same time Assassin's Creed Ragnarok came out.
Oh, okay.
And I've told people, I said, Ghost of Tsushima was my favorite Assassin's Creed game that came out that year because it plays 100% like an Assassin's Creed game, like
Oh,
like
okay.
top to bottom, like the open world, and how you build your character and what you want to do. You can decide whether you want to sneak into places and take people out, or you just want to charge in with your sword out and say, let's do this.
Oh.
Graphics wise, probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever played in my
I
life.
have heard. I have heard.
Oh my. Maybe it's just me. I like somewhat in college have a background in Japanese history. So that like period is like one of my absolute loves. And to just
That's
get to
awesome.
be in that time period and just run around and see everything. Yeah, really, really cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
What's all Assassin's Creed cosplay have you done?
Oh my goodness, what have I not done? Actually, no. Actually, no. You know what? I've done like maybe 6 or 7 different versions of Ezio, and I've done Maria from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to say that's it. I started on an Evie cosplay from Syndicate, but it was what was his name? The that weird doctor. I can't remember his name now, but it was like the steampunk skin where she's got like the one shoulder pad and there's like electric like
Yeah.
lights and stuff coming off of it. That skin, that's the one I started making, but it's kind of just sitting there untouched for about 3 years. We'll get
Anybody who
there.
cosplays knows that story. We all
Oh
know
yeah.
what that's like. Yeah, I've got a table over here. I've got like 5 or 6 3D printed helmets sitting there. They're in various stages of primer, and some of them are so bad I'd have to dust them off before I start applying any more paint to them or anything.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you have in your head cosplays that you want to do in the future?
Assassin's Creed or just
Oh,
anything?
just anything.
Honestly, I've got too many. Yeah. I think the main ones are I really, really, really want to finish Eris Morn from Destiny because that is another one of those that I started like years and years ago and just haven't gotten around to. Um, Evelyn from KDA. Um, to be honest, I really want to do Arno as well. I would love to do Arno. I just think the costume is so cool. I love the coat and like I don't know, there's just something about it. I love it.
Yeah, he's very
Because
debonair with that be the word.
it's very different from like what came before. So like Ezio and Altair's robes kind of they look similar, you know what I mean? The color scheme and the way that it's also flowing, things like that. Arno was the first one. Well, he wasn't, Connor was, but that had like kind of a jacket rather than robes, if you know what I'm saying. And I don't know, there's just something about that, like a structured jacket with the vest underneath. It just it's something I want to make. I would love to be able to make that myself
Mm-hmm.
and have it like properly fit and stuff. Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting transition. Now that you
Mm,
mentioned that, for sure, because of the period in time, if you'd have lived during Altair's period or during Ezio's period, robes were common. Like,
yeah.
so for an assassin to wear robes and blend into a crowd, it was fine. By the time
Yes.
you get to Edward and Black Flag, it's starting to get a little weird. Like people
Yeah.
at that time didn't really wear robes, you know. But
Exactly. Yeah.
but you're absolutely right though. When you get to Unity, that's the way a person who lived in that period would have blended in by
Yes.
dressing that way and
Yeah,
being
because it
able
was
to
set in
blend
the
into a
French
crowd.
Revolution, and obviously a lot of the military wore something similar but in red. So it was
Mm-hmm.
quite cool that they gave him something very much inspired by obviously the militia, but it was in his colors in blue and white with a little hint of red. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. There's just something about that. I thought that was really, really cool.
Right. Speaking of which, I don't know how people wore that stuff back then. I have absolutely no idea. I've done, and I don't know if you're really familiar at all, and I guess it doesn't matter if you are. The American Civil War
Mm.
it happened in the 1860s, and when I was in college, I was a history major, and I
All
would
right.
occasionally, I don't even know if you'd call it cosplay, but I do like historical events, and I'd have a few Civil War generals that I'd dress up as, and it would be like, dark blue wool pants, a white linen shirt, a blue wool vest, and then a blue wool overcoat and white gloves and a hat. And you're standing outside in the Virginia heat where the
I can
heat index is
imagine.
like 103. And you're just
Oof.
standing out there all day long. And I'm like, and these people just did this for a living. Like they couldn't go inside the air conditioning.
Yeah.
They went into their
Yeah.
tent.
They went to war in this stuff. They literally
Right.
battled in this stuff.
Yes.
My
They'd
goodness.
get out on the road and march for 10 miles a day. And yeah, I don't. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Can you imagine the BO? Oh, the BO would have been the worst. Oh,
It's the
no.
fact that when I think of those times, I think of obviously that's when things like trains were starting to become a popular mode of transportation, and obviously all of that just heat. Like I just think of like fumes and smoke and just hot. Do you know what I mean? Like just
Yes.
hot. The word hot comes to mind, and it
Yes.
just it would have been awful.
Yes. And doing especially, and it's kind of this bizarre history. I remember I was talking to this professor, history professor from, oh God, I can't remember off the top of my head. He was British. He was a
Okay.
British history professor in England, who was here in the United States for an event that I was at, and I was talking to him, and he had made some crack about how funny it was about how short American history is. by comparison to British history, which is true.
Right.
Like, you go British history, you can go back, thousands of years, where if you're talking, well, strictly like, from the colonial period forward, you're talking like 300 years. And by comparison, it's not near that much. But, out here in the area where I live, where I'm primarily surrounded by farm country, and we have a museum nearby, Historical Society, that has a replication of what people would have lived like here like 170 years ago. It was a one-room shack. It was a one-room wood shack that had a fireplace and a loft, dirt and hay on the floor. And you realize that like living here, like we'll go through the summers where it gets like over 100 degrees, and in the winter it'll get negative, sometimes for weeks on end. And you just try to imagine, like, before trains, before cars, before any of that stuff, you'd have been stuck in one of these rooms with you, your spouse, probably your 7 children for literally weeks and months on end. Going to the bathroom in a chamber pot, dumping it outside. You typically kept your chickens and pigs and sometimes even your cows inside with you so they didn't die in the cold.
Yeah.
The only thing you had to light anything was candles. Candles were made from animal fat, so those were burning. There are times I don't think I'd want a time machine, purely just because, like, I don't think my nostrils would be able to handle it.
I get that. Yeah.
What? So I'll totally switch gears on you here now. What are your current thought on the MCU and everything that's happened and what we're told is coming?
Mixed feelings. Mixed feelings. I have always trusted Marvel, so I'm gonna continue to trust them and hope that they do the right thing. I'm very excited for a few of the projects that were announced at San Diego. But at the same time, I think there are certain things that maybe should just end there. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Which ones?
I think some of the OG Avengers stories should really just end where they are. Yeah. I'm trying to come up with examples, but I can't remember exactly what was announced. I know there was that big poster with all the different titles. I think mostly the ones that I'm excited for are the ones that are coming back from being gone for a while. So Daredevil, being the biggest one, to be honest, and Black Panther as well, because obviously we haven't had any other movies since Chadwick passed away, and I think that would be really cool to see what they do with that. But yeah, I'm not sure about some of the other ones.
Right. Have you been enjoying any of the Disney Plus shows?
Yes. Yeah. WandaVision, amazing. Loki was really, really good as well. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm not gonna lie. Hawkeye was really good as well. Moon Knight was all right.
Okay.
All right. They could have done more with it, but it was okay for what it was. Yeah. Trying to think, what were the other ones? Were there any other ones?
There was Miss Marvel, and I think that might have been all.
I think that might have been it.
Yeah. Oh, What If, technically.
Yeah, I haven't fully sat down and caught up with What If yet, so I'm not commenting on that just yet. But the few that I saw, I really enjoyed. But that was all the way back, like season 1.
Yeah, and it's good, because for those who haven't watched it, watch it, because you feel like it's these series of one shots, and it kind of is. Yeah. But at the end of it, they all tie in together into like one super massive thing that's just mind blowing and so much fun. That was because I remember the What If comics when I was a kid. They'd like randomly put it out there, like, what if Wolverine had been Spider-Man's mentor, or what if blah 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 blah. So to see him play it out is fun. I hope they go on with that for a long time. I'm still not sure how I feel about Miss Marvel yet. I'm not like, you ever get to that point where those were like, you want to like it, but you're just not sure yet? I don't know. Yes. How do you feel about it?
Yes. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. I like it, but I dislike certain elements in it, I think. I don't know. It's a weird one. I was always really excited for, like, generally speaking, as a kid, when I heard about Miss Marvel, it was like, oh my God, the first, like, well, not the first, but the first official, you could say, like, Muslim what would eventually become an Avenger. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is, it's representative and it's so cool. And she's young as well. So a lot of the younger people, we like me, we could really like relate. And then I saw the show and I was like, a lot of this doesn't actually happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is very like, I don't know, it's very inaccurate. And it kind of made me feel a bit like, oh, maybe they didn't get it right after all.
Mm-hmm. Which
You know what I
parts
mean?
what do you mean?
It may be different because technically I'm not, she's Pakistani and I'm not. So maybe that's why. But I did feel like a lot of the religious stuff in it just wasn't really very well represented. So trying to think, like the first thing I thought was like, this is a really random one, but like have you seen the show?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was that one scene where Kamala's talking to Nakia and they're in the mosque. And the imam sat at the front and he's giving his speech and he's giving kind of like the sermon basically on the day. And then he kind of stops it to be like, excuse me, can you guys not talk? And Kamala kind of retorts back saying, if we could see you and stuff like that, that wouldn't be the case. Things like that don't really tend to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just felt a bit like they were trying to show that like women weren't really heard or listened to in well, I mean, at least in my community, it's the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had like, for our local mosque anyways, we had like a head brother and a head sister, we call them, and we had very much like the panel kind of who ran the mosque and who looked into kind of community events and things like that. There was always, if anything, there was always more females on it than guys, and it was just to make sure that everyone was heard and everyone was represented.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the show didn't really do that and didn't really show that, and I worry that people who thought maybe that the religion was quite misogynistic might then think that even
Mm-hmm.
more after seeing the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
know.
I will say though, story-wise, as it progressed, I did enjoy it more.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you see her kind of evolve more into Miss Marvel, but that has nothing to do with the cultural background. That's just her as a character.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I that's it. That's interesting that you say that. And I kind of wondered about that. I sort of feel like as over the decades that we've been introduced to characters, such as Miss Marvel. And by Miss Marvel, I mean Kamala Khan, because Carol Danvers was the original Miss Marvel.
Yep.
And I'm so glad they made the change they did, because I remember reading the comics and like the 80s and the 90s and even into the early 2000s, like Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, was a blonde playboy like bimbo who just had powers, and they kind of made that decision to like modernize her and like give her a modern like look and rename her Captain Marvel and introduced Kamala Khan as the Miss Marvel. But we've seen a lot of really cool things such as that happening and Miles Morales and these things that are beginning to, because, as one of my favorite Marvel writers once said, there were a lot of us in the early 2000s who were looking around and were like, Marvel's really white. Like, it is really white in this room. We need to start to change a lot of that up. And I'm so glad they did, because representation is great. Representation is so important in the world. But the thing that stuck out at me from exactly what it was you were talking about, and knowing like virtually next to nothing about the Islamic faith, is that scene in there, the exact one you were talking about. It felt forced.
Yeah,
it felt like they were trying to force the strong female in on top of the Muslim thing, which I don't have a problem with, except when it feels forced, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. 100%. I agree. Like I said, for the most part, for the majority of communities, that doesn't need that. They don't need that kind of that forceful, female presence, because they generally do have one already. And like, to my knowledge anyways, I don't know any woman that would say that she was intimidated by the men in her community, or too intimidated to go to a mosque, or you know what I mean, or to put her voice forward, or I don't know. I just felt that part was a little bit too much. Maybe.
Especially since everything that you saw from the show from there going forward, it seemed like it was a pretty liberal, pretty progressive mosque after that.
Exactly. Yeah. It just felt like they had that one scene just to show it, and then that was about it. Everything after that was fine. I don't
Right.
know. It was a bit weird.
Yeah, especially since like you get in like the later episodes where it was really cool, where it felt like the whole mosque was coming together as a community to protect Kamala. And at that point in time, there wasn't, okay, you women get in the back, us men need to talk and come up with a plan.
Right?
Yeah, and that's, I think that's why it stuck out to me, is it felt like it sort of like had to have that in there to try to make some kind of point, but then later the rest of their behavior was completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Who
I
knows?
I think the biggest problem that I had with Miss Marvel, like I've had with so many of the Marvel shows, is there are only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
You know, that is so fresh. I felt that way about Moon Knight and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, why can't you make these at least 10 or 12 or 57?
Yeah, give us more of it.
Yes. and then we have to wait for like we were left on such a cliffhanger at the end of Loki.
Oh my
that
gosh,
I'm just like,
but hey, season 2 is coming.
it is.
And I'm very excited.
Was
very
I maybe they're just taking a while to get to it. Was I the only one who thought that like what happened at the end of Loki was going to be like a big deal and the Marvel movies coming after that?
Yeah. No, you're not the only one for sure. I thought the same. One of my sisters, actually, one of my younger sisters, she loves Loki so much. She's obsessed with him. And I think she thought the same. She was like so excited for Thor to come out because she was like, oh, we're going to see Loki come back. Or there's going to be a post-credit scene where he appears again. And then it didn't happen. And we were like, where's Loki? What's going on? Where is he? They just left him?
Right. Well, and then you felt like you had Loki ended. And then when you knew Spider-Man No Way Home was coming, like you felt like the whole multiverse thing like that was going to be connected somehow. Like, how could it not?
Yeah.
And then it just felt like it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
You know, I see some online theories talking about like, oh, it wasn't Doctor Strange that messed his spell up. Like he doesn't realize it, but it's actually that was at the moment that Loki or that Sophie killed Kang. And so that just happened to, and I'm like, okay, but they didn't in any way, shape, or form allude to that in the movie.
Yeah, they didn't hint at it or anything. Yeah. I think a lot of things I saw as well, I was expecting this, I'm not going to lie, was towards the end of Hawkeye, I was expecting there to be some reference to Spider-Man and to what was going on there, because they were technically both in New York at the time, and they were very close to each other. And I kept hoping for even just a reference. You know, you just see like a hint of red in the corner or something, and you know, okay, they've just crossed paths, but they don't actually. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's very strange.
Saw it very briefly in the movie.
Yeah.
Only because in the movie at the very beginning, when Peter Parker is swinging with MJ, you can see the billboard in the background for the Rogers musical.
Yes.
You know, but outside of that, that's okay. I'm going to be brutally honest. I've never been a fan of the Hawkeye character.
Oh, really?
I've never been a big fan of Jeremy Renner playing the character.
Oh, seriously? Okay. Why not?
Part of it is because honestly, and I'm genuinely not trying to be mean. I've seen him in stuff outside of MCU. I don't think he's that strong of an actor. Okay. I realize there's like a fracture point here that I think is making me critical of all this. The thing about me is one of my hobbies is I'm an archer. Like I love to shoot bow and arrow. Jeremy Renner, I guarantee you, has never had a day of archery training in his life. He holds his bow wrong in every single scene, and you try not to let it bother you. You genuinely try not to let it bother you.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, even if you've never fired a gun before, you know how a gun fires. So if you're watching a movie and somebody is holding a gun sideways, it's going to bother the crap. Like it's just going to take you out of that.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, and he holds his bow wrong and draws it wrong every single time. And I've even heard him like joking about it in interviews. He's like, I don't care. I just show up and shoot the scenes, and in post-production, they make it look good. And I'm like one of the small percentage people on the planet who's like, no, they don't make it look good. It still looks bad. Though the great redeeming thing about Hawkeye, though, the show, was Kate Bishop. Like I love the Kate Bishop character, and the fact that Yelena got to come into it at the end.
Yes,
it was so much fun. I want to like. I just want her to like announce that they just signed her to a 10 movie deal, because I will like
amazing. Oh my god, I would watch her for hours.
You and me both. I'm like there are those few actors that and characters. Like if they announced right now that next week there was a 10-hour Loki movie coming out, I would take the week off work.
Oh,
I'd be
100%.
Like, let's go do it. Anytime Tom Hiddleston wants to put on the green coat, I'm all about it. You know?
I love that.
Yeah. What's been your favorite MCU movie so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. I really like No Way Home. That was an amazing movie. Oh, I mean, of course. You saw. My heart. They brought Toby and Andrew back. That for me probably will always be my favorite movie because of that one specific part. It's everything my little childhood self hoped for. Probably also, I'd say Infinity War. Probably the first part though, not the second, obviously, because the second was where all the heartbreak happened. But the first one I thought was really, really well done. Really well done. So yeah, I think those two are my favorites.
I love that the No Way Home, Infinity War, and Endgame are like the three movies that I wish Doctor Strange could like wipe my brain and I could watch them again for the first time.
Yes,
because nothing beats that, you know.
Yep.
I remember going to the theater for all of those, and the end of Infinity War, yeah, it was a lot of heartbreak, but when it came to Endgame was, especially the end, like that whole big fight scene was just like, I remember, like, how often is it that you're sitting in a movie theater and everybody goes nuts like it's a sports event?
Yes, you know everyone did that at mine. Everyone stood up and gave them a standing ovation. It was the best thing ever.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. When Cap says Avengers Assemble, like people were throwing their hats in the air.
Yeah.
Like the theater was up for grabs, man. It was just, literally, it was crazy.
That was incredible. But that's the thing as well that makes the experiences when you go and like there's other diehard fans around you that all, you know, they feel how you feel right now. They're excited when you're excited. They're sad when you're sad. It makes the experience so much better.
Yes. And I mean, No Way Home, like the second Andrew Garfield stepped through that portal, like it was, because you knew once he was in it, Toby was going to be in it. Yeah. Like there was no way they could do one and not the other.
But at the same time, I think it still surprised everyone to see him come in afterwards, because everyone thinks, okay, Andrew Garfield is still passable. He looks young enough to but Toby obviously has grown up a lot, and he's definitely not his, 18-year-old Peter Parker. So when everyone saw it again, it was one of those, everyone was up, clapping and screaming and whooping, and it was incredible. Absolutely an experience I'm so glad I had.
Yeah, one of those things I don't think I'll ever forget. Like it ends up like one of those core memories. Like because I've been to, probably like a lot of people, I've been to a ton of movies throughout my life. Yep. But there are those few ones that are like an experience beyond anything, that it's like it isn't just saying I went and saw that movie and it was good. Like you literally remember the theater experience of seeing it for the first time.
Yep.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, we are we're inching closer to the end of the clock here. Have you got anything that you want to say to folks on your way out?
Thank you for watching.
And where all can people find you at?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. All of them are at Hijab Hooligan. Very easy to find. And my Twitch is Dania Geddon, as in Armageddon, but with my first name.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Speaking, like I don't mean to bring it back up, but the play on words. I will. One of the moments from Miss Marvel that just made me absolutely die laughing was when she referred to the clique of women who run gossip in the mosque as the Illuminantes. I just died laughing. I'm like, that is so brilliant. That is really good.
Yep. Oh my goodness. For me, it was as well when she was talking about the gin, and then Bruno's like freaking out. He's like, Antonic? That had me dead as well. I really like that. I'm not gonna lie.
That was really good. They I thought in that show they were gonna play up more the whole Kamala and him sort of tension, sort of friend. I secretly have a crush on you, even though I'm your best friend, and that would come to something, and then it just kind of,
I think in the first few episodes they did obviously hint, but then it just kind of fizzled out as she got into more danger, I guess.
Yeah, it just became, we don't talk about Bruno, and we moved on.
Literally.
All right, so that was the episode with Dani. I hope you enjoyed it. She's so much fun to talk to. I look forward to talking to her again in the future. I want to thank everybody out there for supporting this podcast, doing all that you do, liking, subscribing, sharing, all those things that are the fuel that makes the current machine run. I'm going to get out of here. Before I do, I want to say thank you to all of you. I love you, and I hope you take care of each other.